Hello, my name is Nina Olsen. I've been teaching clarinet at MacPhail Center for Music for almost 30 years, and it's been my pleasure in that time to get to know Paul Babcock, who is currently our president and chief operating officer. And I thought it would be nice today to get to hear a little bit more about Paul's background. I think a lot of people know him as chief operating officer, but he's also a fine teacher. And so this is Paul's chance to tell us more about that. Hi, Paul.
Hello, how are you, Nina?
I'm well, thanks. It's nice to see you, not in person, but close.
Yep, good to see you.
Yeah. So I wanted you to start out the way that we ask people who are interviewing for MacPhail to start out. Would you kind of flesh out your resume and give it a narrative quality? When did you begin playing percussion? How did you choose it? What was your experience with lessons like? Your education through college? Things like that.
Sure, sure. Well, very early on, I gravitated towards percussion and especially the drum set. I distinctly remember when I was 5 years old, I saw Buddy Rich on the Merv Griffin show, and I kind of decided right there in that moment I was going to be a drummer. And so I immediately pulled out every utensil I could from the kitchen and took it all outside to the sidewalk and made a drum set. And from that point on, I've been playing the drums to some degree or not.
Did your mom punish you for taking all of the kitchen out to the sidewalk, or was she just happy not to have you make that sound in the house?
Yeah, she was happy that I didn't make it in the house, and she just kind of shook her head. Later on, she would tell people when they would say, "How could you tolerate all this, the drumming in the house and so on?" And she would just respond, "I know where he's at and that he's not causing trouble."
That's good. I think
So
musical.
I grew up in a small rural town in Western Illinois, and so from the time I was five until well into kind of the school years, I didn't have a whole lot of opportunity for instruction. We had school bands and so on, and so I would get involved with the junior high band and later on high school. But there around the times when I was really wanting some instruction, we didn't have any teachers in the area. And so I'd get a little bit from band directors and so on. And so we kept looking and we kept looking, and I just kept kind of driving my mother nuts and saying, I really want to study the drums. So then we found a teacher in another community about 20 miles away in high school. And so then I really started serious study and found a really good teacher, and so then I really progressed a lot on the drum set. And then a really formative event happened when I was 16. I guess I was doing okay teaching myself on the drum set and with the bit of lessons that I was getting, and I auditioned for a rock band that had been around for about 10 years and kind of played the local circuit. And so I got the job as a replacement, and that became really kind of one of the best experiences I ever had. And so it was at that point that I really thought seriously, I want to do this music thing for a living. And I started thinking about colleges and so on. And when I mentioned that to my mother, she got very nervous. And so I went to my teacher and said, "How do you make a living playing percussion?" And so he said, "Well, it's possible. Why don't you have him double major when he gets into school?" And so she came back with that answer to me. And I said, "Oh, yeah, excuse me. Yeah, absolutely. I want to major in business as well." And so then got into college, started learning all kinds of different areas of percussion, and continued playing rock and roll, got into jazz, got into classical, much more. And I had this wonderful experience in undergraduate school where I would spend my mornings in business classes with a whole different group of people. And then in the afternoon, I would switch over to all the music classes and ensembles and all of that, and enjoyed both of them immensely. So I went on through undergraduate school and kept all of that going, and then came up here to the University of Minnesota to study with Marv Dahlgren, who at that point was the principal percussionist with the Minnesota Orchestra, and really kind of a nationally known jazz percussionist. And so he was a really good fit for my background. and where I wanted to go. And my future wife was from the Twin Cities area, and so that made this a really good fit for us. So with all of that, along the line, I started teaching a bit and so on, but I really enjoyed having kind of those two realms of study, both music and business.
Yeah. So when did you realize that teaching would be a big part of what you did? Did you teach as you were in college? Did you teach students on the side? Did you not start teaching until you moved here?
Yeah, I started a little bit when I was in undergraduate school and teaching students on the side, and then I did that a bit more so in graduate school, and that's when I did, right away find that I liked teaching a lot. It wasn't something I had been teaching about or thinking about in my younger years. Percussionists and band directors don't always get along so well, and I was one of them. And and then I always had this hard time finding a teacher, and so it wasn't something that I really saw a lot of role models. And but then as soon as I started doing it, I really enjoyed it from a number of perspectives, just intersecting with a student who was really interested and so on, and we had things to share. So it was from that perspective, it was just a thing I gravitated towards right away.
Okay. And what were some of your teaching experiences in the Twin Cities before you started teaching at MacPhail, or did you start teaching at MacPhail pretty much right away?
I started at MacPhail pretty quickly, but I did have a few other experiences, kind of coming out of graduate school, looking to do anything I could to make ends meet. And so I think there was about 5 locations at one point I was teaching at, and there was a music store in Prior Lake. There was Schmidt Music. I got involved teaching as an adjunct teacher at Northwestern College in Roseville, and just kind of every place that I could put together. And then MacPhail came along, and that became the place that I could put all my efforts into.
Right. And so along the way, then you did you can pursue a graduate degree in business as well, or do you have just the undergraduate degree in business?
Just the undergraduate degree in business. Along the way, as I was working through my progression at MacPhail, I did a large amount of continuing education, you'd call it, largely through St. Thomas. And St. Thomas has a fantastic nonprofit leadership program. So I have a handful of certificates through St. Thomas in a whole variety of subjects, from leadership to all the things related to running a nonprofit business.
Got it. So your progression we'll come back to teaching in a minute, but your progression through the administration at MacPhail started, I think, with you being department chair of the Winds Brass Percussion Department.
Yeah, that's correct. And it started pretty quickly. So I started at MacPhail as a teacher in the fall of '89 and September, I believe. And then the following June, I became the chair of the Woodwind Brass Percussion Department.
Okay. And after that, what were your next steps before on the way to becoming COO?
Oh, gosh, I think there was quite a few. There was a number of kind of different title changes and so on. And so along the way, I, director of program services and outreach was a title at one point. There was another one at one point called interdisciplinary study. There was a short period of time where my title was dean. And then vice president of the school, executive vice president. So, so there was certainly a rather steady, sometimes rapid increase in responsibilities.
Right. Yep. So going back to teaching, what are your personal goals as a teacher, and what are some of the things that guide you in teaching, and what are maybe some examples of student interactions that kind of demonstrate that?
Well, I really enjoy teaching a lot, and and that's even comes home even more so during this time when we're teaching remotely, how much I value the teaching. I really enjoy the interactions with the students, and my overall goal is to really do whatever the student needs. And whatever that student need is, whatever they need to progress to the next level, whatever their goals are, I'm going to do whatever I can to help them. And so I look for students to, I'm going to put in as much effort as I can, and then I hope that they will do the same in return. And when we're not always, maybe along the way, we're not always quite matched on that, and then we figure out a way to get that matched. Some of my favorite experiences I have, first that comes to mind, I have two men. I used to call them young men, but now they're getting closer to middle age. And so I have two that started with me that were 10 and 11, and now 27 years later, they're a little bit older. And so they both happen to have Down syndrome, but they've been studying with me for 27 years now. And that's just, I've learned so much from them, and kind of how to persevere and to, to make the most out of all the abilities that you have, and to always be they're always joyous when they come to their lessons. They enjoy their lessons. I enjoy having them, and we've just had some magnificent experiences for the first time ever on with the remote learning. And so I've had a number of many students over the years, and some have gone on to great accomplishments, and but I think all along the way, all of them, I hope, have enjoyed percussion a lot. I think one of the things I think of is I like percussion, I like performing, I like playing a lot, and I hope that I have the opportunity to instill and maybe inspire students in that way as well.
Yeah. Two of the things that I think of particularly when I do think of your older students, longtime students. I'm very jealous. I like having students for 8 or 10 years. I've never had a student for 27 years, but
kind of crazy when you think about it.
It is, but two of the things I really think about in terms of you and teaching, one is the group Rimshots, which you founded and have done a number of different extra projects with taking tours or doing public performances, collaborations with a ballet company, or taking them to competitions. And another thing that I think of with you is I have this strong memory of looking out the window one day because I heard all this banging outside, and you had a bass drum strapped to you, and you were leading a parade around the block in downtown Minneapolis of young percussionists.
Yeah.
Do you remember doing that? Do you remember what sparked that day, or is that just so common for you to do something a little sideways like that it doesn't spark a particular memory?
Well, we do some uncommon things now and then, but I think that was a planned event. I think we had a number of students march from MacPhail over to the old MacPhail over to PV Plaza for an event, and so we put together a Brazilian samba to march down the street. And so that was pretty cool. But I do like doing kind of the out of the ordinary types of things. And Rimshots is a real kind of pride and joy of mine. That's been a fantastic group, and I enjoy that immensely. The formation of that group goes a little bit back to when that rock band I was in high school, and because that was such a strong experience for me, I wanted to be able to provide that experience for other students and maybe leave out the bar scene. And but over the years, we've done a number of really fun and amazing things. Tour de France, tour various parts of the country. The group has been well received in many different places and competitions and so on. And so that's a really fun and exciting group where we can really kind of push the envelope in a way of what students think they are capable of, and to keep saying let's do more, and to have the students push each other is part of it. They inspire each other tremendously, and that makes it easy for me in a way, because one comes in and is just doing really well, the person next to him sees that and they want to come back next week and be just as good.
Right. I think you found that teaching online, that they really pushed each other because they could hear each other more individually when you were working with them.
Yeah, absolutely. In just a few weeks here, when they come back, now that they're hearing each other's parts so isolated and so specifically, they are extra prepared because there's no place to hide with how we're doing some of the rehearsals.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So, when you're an administrator, what are some of the things, what are the things that you think about daily? What guides you from step day to day, week to week, month to month? What are some of your goals for MacPhail?
Yeah, well, MacPhail's a wonderful place, and I think back a lot to a lot of the things that I learned and got to experience early on, where I felt very supported in terms of creating a new idea and being able to take that idea and work on it and make it happen, develop new programs, and so on. So as I think of my role at MacPhail, that's one of the things that I really want to be able to do, and is to help others um, uh, take a program, take an idea, and make it happen. Sometimes that's on a smaller scale, and sometimes it's on a really big scale. And so, as I think back to MacPhail, we've been able to do that on some pretty major scales over the last 20 years, and opening new sites and this new building and new programs. Getting an online program going 9 years ago. That thank goodness we have that today as a platform to build the things on that we need to do during the pandemic, and develop a new program in Austin that reaches a whole another set of students. And so behind all of that, it's supporting, it's creating new ideas that meet the community's needs, and that's really kind of what is foundational about it. Is MacPhail only survives and succeeds if we do what the students and the community needs. And so some of these things just really go back to I'm so glad with the business degree that I had, because I do definitely use the learning that I had way back then in a lot of ways. And so that kind of all that business training sort of really instilled in me that I wanted to, at some day, the idea I wanted to lead a business. And so then to uh, have a business that is focused in music and something that I really enjoy just kind of brings together um, um, you know, brings together two or three strong elements for me: music, a business, a nonprofit business that serves the community. So MacPhail, as compared to maybe other types of institutions, we again only survive and succeed if what we're doing meets community need. And so that's what's been great about MacPhail. And that then leads into where I would see MacPhail going down the road too, is the industry of music, the industry of music learning and education continues to evolve and to change. And so being able to evolve and change with that down the road is going to be critical for MacPhail. And so we need to continue to be, have all the elements that enable us to be an institution that can shift and can move. So you need great people throughout the organization. You need really good communication throughout the organization. You need to have an experimental mindset so that you will try things and find out that they don't work, and then try other things, and to continue learning from that. So we are an education organization. We should also kind of be a learning organization as well.
I would have two things before we wrap up. One is smallish and one is big. The
Okay.
smaller one is I was really impressed to think about the fact, I was actually kind of astonished to realize that we went from a decision to go to online instruction that was announced Friday evening, and Monday morning all of our instruction was online.
Mhm.
The public schools and the colleges I teach at needed 2 weeks or more. And so I was pretty, so
Yeah.
if there are people that I think you could point out and thank, because I don't know everyone who was part of that, but I know a lot of people were part of that. So
Yeah, right. Well, kind of in ways, everybody, certainly Kyle and Kristen and Brian, our senior team, kind of looking at all that and saying, here's what we need to make happen. And after we made that decision, then the first step was to pull in a team that included IT, Chris Waterbury and Phil Welch, along with all of our program leaders. and to say, and so then you start to see elements of this, of communication and culture that help to make such a fast transformation. So we bring everybody together and we start to say, okay, here's what we need to do. And we have about an hour meeting on that. And we start to brainstorm with Chris Waterbury, what's possible and can we support this and how do we approach it and different things like that. So then that all was underway to kind of help craft what the message would be out to all the employees. Hey, we're going remote. Here's all the resources and so on. Here's the different people that can support you. So all of our program directors and managers, along with IT, being really critical in that, along with marketing, student services, and all. So in the end, it takes everybody, because certainly the teachers too, then hearing that on Friday and thinking, oh my gosh, I've got to change everything in the course of 2 days. I don't think, we also have to give a nod back to it. I heard from her recently, Kristen Shoemaker, who helped get us started 9 years ago with the online learning and a lot of training and all that. And so all that work and people continuing it on after she left really made it possible.
Right. I saw a lot of faculty helping each other in different ways.
That too. Yeah, absolutely.
More experienced teaching online and those who were less. So I thought I was really impressed, actually. Didn't occur to me at the time because we were all working so fast. But once I started teaching at other venues, as they got ready, I went, oh, yeah, right, look what we did. So I was kind of excited.
Yeah, pretty cool. Yeah.
So you have the opportunity to, you're a music educator yourself, you're administrator of the nonprofit, you lead MacPhail, and as a leader of MacPhail, you visit a lot of other community music schools, and you work with other nonprofits and arts organizations. You are in discussions with educators and other nonprofits all around. And so what do you see happening for arts education in Minnesota and at MacPhail in the next 5 years, and what would you hope would happen next? Where do you see things going?
Well, one piece, of course, with where we're at right now, I do think remote teaching and learning may very well become a bigger part of our teaching and learning, even as a result of what we're seeing and the effectiveness that it can have. In addition to that, where I see, again, kind of coming back to that idea that music and education keep changing and evolving. And even before the pandemic, I would have said technology was one of those pieces. And so the remote learning, just one aspect of it, but also the ability to compose and create music, record music, experience music in electronic forms today is something that I think will continue to influence. I think also we just have to keep looking at and keep diversifying music. Music is all different types of music, and embracing that across the board, I think, continues to become more and more important for our society, so that there is equal access to styles of music and equal access for all communities to music. So in the end, what I would say with that is that we're all looking to, and we need to keep making our programs responsive and relevant to the communities. And so with that, more cultures involved, more types of music, and more opportunities to be able to learn and connect with communities.
Got it. Great. So do you have a logic model for that?
We will. Yes, we will.
Okay.
And, but yeah, there's yeah, we do a lot of logic models based on individual programs. Certainly, in the end, I mean, that whole aspect of a logic model. If you do this, what's the community impact? And so, if you take all the things I was saying and you put that into the inputs and various levels of detail, and then we should have a great output in the end, which is community music for all.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Paul. I hope that our faculty who don't know you as well, don't know you as a teacher, will have learned a little bit more about you today. So
thanks for the opportunity, and great to talk with you and to talk about something a little bit different than what we normally talk about.